fucking Meghan Markle special, and it sobered me right up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Something
Maureen.
killed your vibe.
Did you watch all episodes of this?
No. I will go hard in the paint.
You folks, in a twist so perfectly ironic it feels scripted, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, who has built an entire brand on vulnerability, advocacy, and escaping toxic institutions, has found herself trapped in a nightmare of her own making. This time, the institution isn't the monarchy, it's the court of public opinion, and the judge and jury are being led by none other than conservative commentator Megyn Kelly. A recently released parody segment on Kelly's show, produced alongside New York Post columnist and critic Maureen Callahan, has not only gone viral, but has reportedly triggered an intense behind-the-scenes meltdown so severe that legal threats are now being whispered through closed doors in Montecito. The segment didn't traffic in wild conspiracy theories or unverified leaks. Please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, thank you. Instead, it weaponized Meghan's own words, her curated public persona, and the stark contradictions that have followed her since leaving royal life. And the result has been nothing short of catastrophic for Team Sussex. The video in question is a masterclass in satirical mimicry. Kelly and Callahan don't need to invent a villain. They simply replay the greatest hits of the Sussex narrative, punctuated with deadpan commentary that highlights the absurdity of a millionaire couple living in a $14 million mansion preaching about systemic oppression and privacy while doing global media tours and signing 9-figure deals with Netflix and Spotify. Dressed in a calculated approximation of Meghan's signature minimalist chic style, Kelly reenacts moments from the Oprah interview, the Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan, and the various public speeches where Meghan has positioned herself as a global humanitarian and victim of unparalleled press intrusion. The genius and cruelty of the parody lies in its accuracy. It doesn't need to exaggerate, it simply holds up a mirror and the reflection of a woman who seems to believe her own press while refusing to acknowledge her immense privilege, has proven too much for the Duchess to bear. According to sources close to the situation, Meghan's reaction was immediate and volcanic. The carefully maintained facade of calm, compassionate wellness advocate shattered, replaced by a fury that has reportedly left aides scrambling. The core of her anger, insiders suggest, isn't that the video is false, but that it is true enough to be devastating. It frames her not as a misunderstood humanitarian, but as a deeply self-absorbed performance artist, a master of victim chic who has leveraged her royal title and personal grievances to build a commercial empire while claiming to seek a quiet life. The segment specifically zeroes in on what critics call her selective vulnerability, her willingness to speak out about the pain of press intrusion while simultaneously courting that very press to promote her projects, and her portrayal of herself as an outsider despite marrying into one of the most powerful families in the world. For Meghan, whose entire brand is built on careful narrative control, this kind of mocking, accurate exposure is the ultimate kryptonite.
Our flowers that are edible, but don't worry, she's a woman of the people. You can grow those just on your windowsill at home.
Sure.
In New York, your edible flowers.
And don't forget your local beekeeper.
Yeah.
Your local beekeeper.
Oh yeah, because she has a bee hive, which she goes to. That's how they open the whole series with her bees, and like, don't worry if you don't have this, just go to your.
The threat of legal action, however, is where the situation transforms from a public relations headache into a potential self-own of historic proportions. Legal experts are already circling, with many noting that parody is protected speech in the United States, especially when it comments on public figures using their own publicly available statements and actions. For Megyn to sue would be to engage in the very kind of litigious, power-flexing behavior the video accuses her of, a move that would instantly validate the parody's entire thesis. It would be a Streisand effect gambit on steroids, guaranteeing the video would be replayed on every news network for weeks and dissected by every First Amendment lawyer in the country. The discovery process alone would be a PR nightmare, potentially forcing Megyn to answer under oath about the very contradictions Kelly highlights. The lawsuit would cease to be a legal tool and become a theatrical performance, proving the video's point more effectively than Kelly ever could on her own. But the real victory for Kelly and the chorus of laughter echoing across the internet isn't just in potentially winning a legal battle, it's in the cultural resonance. The video works because it articulates a sentiment that has been simmering for years among a large segment of the population, one that grew weary of the Sussexes' seemingly endless loop of grievance and grandeur. It gives voice to the audience that rolls their eyes at being being lectured on privilege and privacy by a couple who use private jets and issue press releases about their carbon neutrality. It's a cathartic release for those who see not a brave escape from a stifling institution, but a savvy, somewhat cynical rebranding of ancient aristocratic entitlement for the influencer age. The internet isn't just laughing at Megyn, it's laughing in agreement with a narrative that finally, loudly, calls out the perceived hypocrisy without the filter of royal decorum or media fear. This incident reveals a fundamental miscalculation at the heart of the Sussex strategy. They left the UK to escape what they called a toxic tabloid culture, only to plant their flag in the heart of the even more ruthless and unforgiving arena of American media. The British press, for all its faults, operates with a certain deference to the institution of monarchy. American commentators like Megyn Kelly have no such compunction. They are merciless, partisan, and understand the power of comedy to dismantle a reputation far more effectively than any investigative report. Megyn's nightmare isn't just one video, it's the realization that the game has changed. The opponents are more brutal, and the weapon she fears most, devastating, undeniable mockery, is now being aimed directly at the heart of her brand. The mirror has been held up, and for Megyn, the reflection isn't just embarrassing, it's a potential empire killer, and the whole world is watching and laughing.
In this podcast, Megyn does her perfectly curated life thing, but she's allegedly wearing no makeup. Meanwhile, she's got like the perfect blowout, you know, and like she's completely...
Megyn Kelly has never been known for pulling punches, but in a blistering, career-defining episode of her podcast with guest Dan Wooten, she moved beyond criticism and into the realm of full-scale demolition, and her target was Megyn, the Duchess of Sussex. What unfolded was less an interview and more a forensic dismantling of the Meghan Markle brand, a 90-minute masterclass in public evisceration that left no aspect of the Sussex narrative unscathed. Kelly, a former Fox News anchor and NBC host who has built her second act on combative, conservative-leaning commentary, made it abundantly clear that she is done with polite skepticism. She is now in the business of myth-busting, and in her crosshairs is what she describes as Megyn's perfectly curated life. A performance of victimhood and virtue that Kelly argues is not just insincere, but dangerously manipulative. The core of Kelly's argument, delivered with the precision of a trial lawyer and the relish of a seasoned provocateur, hinges on what she identifies as Megyn's performative vulnerability. According to Kelly, the Duchess has mastered the art of presenting herself as a besieged, empathetic everywoman while simultaneously operating as a ruthless, image-obsessed celebrity. She wants you to see the tears, Kelly asserted, her voice dripping with caustic disbelief. But she never lets you see the calculator. She'll show you the pain of being hounded by paparazzi, but she'll never show you the contract for the $100 million Netflix deal that requires her to be famous enough to be hounded. This dichotomy, the plea for privacy paired with a relentless pursuit of lucrative publicity, formed the backbone of Kelly's indictment. She and Wooten methodically chronicled the Sussexes' actions since stepping back from royal duties. The Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, the Spotify deal, the public speeches on mental health and social justice, all while claiming a desire for a quieter, more ordinary life. It is the greatest grift in modern celebrity history, Wooten declared, a sentiment Kelly enthusiastically endorsed. They have monetized their pain so effectively, she added, that they've created a new asset class, royal grievance. Kelly reserved particular scorn for what she termed Megyn's selective feminism and geopolitical tourism. She played clips of Megyn's speeches on gender equality and then juxtaposed them with reports of alleged mistreatment of staff during her time at Kensington Palace. She highlighted the couple's use of private jets while championing environmental causes and their residency in a multi-million-dollar Montecito mansion while speaking about economic inequality. This isn't advocacy, it's aesthetics, Kelly snapped. It's about wearing the right clothes, saying the right buzzwords, and striking the right poses for the cameras. It's activism as a branding exercise, and it's utterly hollow. Wooten chimed in with tabloid-ready details about the couple's rift with the royal family, framing Harry as a man brainwashed and isolated from his own identity, a prince transformed into a prop in his wife's ambitious narrative. The conversation took its most personal turn when Kelly addressed Megyn's relationship with her own family. She described the estrangement from Thomas Markle and half-sister Samantha not as a complex family tragedy, but as a calculated PR strategy. When people become inconvenient to the narrative, they are edited out, Kelly stated coldly. Her father, her sister, they don't fit the image of the self-made independent woman who triumphed over adversity, so they are discarded, and their complaints are dismissed as the ravings of jealous liars. This, for Kelly, was the most damning evidence of Megyn's character, a willingness to sever familial bonds to protect a commercial brand. The podcast was more than just a critique. It was a cultural moment that crystallized a growing backlash against the Sussexes. Kelly and Wooten were not just offering opinions, they were articulating a counter-narrative that has been brewing in certain media and political circles for years. They gave voice to the audience that sees Megyn not as a victim of a racist press or a stifling monarchy, but as a brilliant but cynical operator who played the victim card to global acclaim and unimaginable profit. Kelly's language was deliberately provocative, designed to trigger a reaction. She used terms like grift, fraud, and performance art, not as off-the-cuff insults, but as legalistic charges in her prosecution. The impact of such a direct and comprehensive attack from a figure with Kelly's platform is significant. It moves the criticism of Meghan Markle from the gossip pages to the arena of ideological debate. It frames her not just as a controversial royal, but as a symbol of a broader cultural phenomenon that Kelly and her audience disdain: the rise of celebrity activism, the culture of victimhood, and the perceived hypocrisy of the elite left. By dedicating an entire episode to this takedown, Kelly is signaling that this is a hill she is willing to die on. She is betting that her audience is hungry for this kind of unapologetic confrontation, that there is a market for tearing down what she sees as a carefully constructed idol. For Meghan Markle, the episode represents a new and more dangerous level of opposition. It's no longer about critiquing her decisions, it's about attacking her fundamental character and integrity. The war is no longer cold. Megyn Kelly has just fired the most explosive shot yet.
It sounds like Netflix wanted to cancel, and someone representing Meghan and Harry begged them to at least say that it's a first look. Like, you're not cut off, you're not canceled, they don't think you're losing. You're winners. There's such winners that they want to first look at any projects you're going to unleash down the line, because they might want to buy.
Megyn Kelly, the incendiary host of The Megyn Kelly Show, and a figure who has built her post-mainstream media career on unfiltered provocation, has set her sights on a new and unexpected target: Meghan Markle's foray into domesticity. In a segment that was equal parts cultural critique and personal evisceration, Kelly roasted the Duchess of Sussex for what she termed stupid attempts to rebrand herself as a modern-day Martha Stewart, a cozy, relatable homemaker and lifestyle guru, despite being an exiled royal living in a $14 million Montecito mansion. The takedown was not merely about jam recipes or table settings. It was a forensic dismantling of Megyn's entire post-royal strategy, which Kelly framed as a desperate, tone-deaf, and ultimately fraudulent effort to manufacture relatability after years of positioning herself as a global humanitarian and victim of unparalleled press intrusion. Kelly's argument, delivered with the sharp, sarcastic precision that has become her trademark, hinges on what she identifies as a jarring and cynical pivot in the Sussex brand. First, she was a royal humanitarian fleeing racist institutions. Then, she was a podcasting mental health advocate. Now, she's suddenly a homemaker showing us how to arrange flowers and make strawberry jam, Kelly asked, her voice dripping with incredulity. It's not a reinvention, it's a regression. And it's not just stupid, it's insulting to anyone with a brain. For Kelly, this new chapter is the most transparently calculated move yet in Megyn's playbook, an effort to sand down her controversial edges and appeal to a more traditional, feminine, and commercially lucrative demographic after the very public collapse of her Archewell audio deal with Spotify and the lukewarm reception to her and Harry's Netflix docuseries. The problem, Kelly asserts, is that the persona doesn't fit. Martha Stewart earned her authority by building an empire from the ground up, through hard work, expertise, and actual domestic skill. Megyn's authority comes from marrying a prince and then complaining about it on television. You can't just buy a farmhouse and suddenly become authentic. The segment took direct aim at Megyn's recently launched lifestyle blog and her appearances showcasing her cooking and gardening endeavors, efforts that have been widely mocked in certain corners of the internet as Montecito cosplay. Kelly played clips of Megyn discussing the therapeutic benefits of gardening, and then juxtaposed them with headlines about the couple's extensive staff, including chefs, landscapers, and house managers. She's playing farmer while someone else actually tills the soil, Kelly scoffed. This isn't the American dream. It's the American facade. It's Marie Antoinette playing shepherdess at the Petit Trianon, except this time, the peasants are being asked to buy the jam. Kelly and her guests dissected the sheer economics of the endeavor, noting that Meghan's version of homemade likely involves organic out-of-season produce flown in from specialty farms and prepared in a kitchen most of her audience could never afford. This isn't relatable. It's a parody of relatability being sold to us by a woman who has no idea what a real grocery bill looks like. But Kelly's critique went deeper than mere hypocrisy. She framed Meghan's domestic turn as a profound strategic miscalculation, a failure to understand her own brand and the public's appetite for it. People didn't follow Meghan Markle because they wanted baking tips, she argued. They followed her because she was a disruptor. She was the woman who said, "Screw you" to the crown. That was interesting. That was powerful. This question mark. This is boring. It's the most predictable and safe move possible from a woman who once seemed fearless. Kelly suggested that this pivot is a direct result of Meghan's team realizing that the victim narrative had a limited shelf life, and that the couple's attempts to be taken seriously as philanthropists and producers had fallen flat. When the world didn't crown you the next Oprah, you panicked and decided to become the next Ina Garten. It's a retreat, not a reinvention. The most brutal part of Kelly's assessment was her prediction of failure. She doesn't believe the domestic brand will work because, in her view, the public will never buy Meghan as an authentic authority on normal life. You can't sell us on the simplicity of homemade bread when you live in a compound most of us could only ever visit on a studio tour. You can't lecture us on mindful living after doing a multi-million-dollar tell-all interview with Oprah. The cognitive dissonance is too loud. Kelly concluded that this endeavor would ultimately join the growing pile of abandoned Sussex ventures, a half-hearted effort that will be mocked and forgotten, further damaging their credibility. The segment was more than just a celebrity roast. It was a sharp commentary on modern celebrity itself, on the relentless, often clumsy pursuit of personal branding, and the public's growing exhaustion with influencers who preach authenticity from behind gated walls. By calling Meghan's attempts stupid, Kelly was speaking to a broader frustration with a culture where fame is leveraged to sell expertise in fields where none exists. For Meghan Markle, the review from the Megyn Kelly show is a devastating one. She's not just being called a hypocrite, she's being called a bad actress in a role nobody asked for. And in the court of public opinion, that might be the hardest verdict of all to overcome.
Callahan and I discovered firsthand, Glenn, when we did our parody of Meghan's stupid Netflix show, trying to make herself into the next Martha Stewart, and we realized her one-pot pasta is just a blatant ripoff of Martha Stewart's one-pot pasta, which turned out to be like one of her most famous recipes. And it's honestly just like an unabashed ripoff. I'm sure Martha's heard about it and is probably like, who is this fool trying to imitate that she's me, as she, out of the other side of her mouth, complains about how her castle is too small.
The catalyst was none other than domestic icon Martha Stewart's recent interview, in which she lavished praise upon Gwyneth Paltrow's goop lifestyle empire while delivering a masterclass in passive-aggressive shade toward Megyn, the Duchess of Sussex. What unfolded between Kelly and Greenwald was less a gossip session and more a forensic analysis of why Stewart's comments landed with such cultural force, and what they reveal about Meghan Markle's deepening crisis of credibility. Stewart's seemingly benign remarks were, as Kelly and Greenwald unpacked, a surgical strike in the genteel world of lifestyle branding by openly celebrating Paltrow, a fellow elite who unapologetically caters to a luxury market with products like $300 jade eggs and $1,000 skincare routines. While pointedly omitting Megyn from the conversation, Stewart drew a clear line in the sand. Martha didn't just ignore Megyn, Kelly noted. She defined the terms of legitimacy. Gwyneth, for all her quirks, owns her lane. She doesn't pretend her $85 candle is for everyone. She's authentic to her brand of aspirational, if sometimes baffling, luxury. Megyn, on the other hand, is trying to sell us rustic homemade jam from a palace while talking about systemic inequality. The cognitive dissonance is deafening. Greenwald, approaching from his signature anti-establishment perspective, framed it as a failure not just of branding, but of ideology. Megyn wants to be both a woman of the people and a global elite. She wants the moral authority of a humanitarian with the commercial perks of a Kardashian. In today's culture, that paradox is unsustainable. Martha Stewart, a consummate capitalist, recognizes a viable product. Gwyneth is a viable product. Megyn right now is not. The conversation swiftly pivoted to Megyn's much-discussed ratings woes, particularly the lackluster performance of her Netflix documentary and the abrupt collapse of her Spotify deal. Greenwald, a relentless critic of corporate media hypocrisy, offered a surprising take. The issue isn't that the public is uninterested in the Sussexes, but that they are uninterested in inauthenticity. People will consume content that feels genuine, even if it's controversial, he argued. They tuned into Harry and Meghan's initial Oprah interview because it had the veneer of a real explosive revelation, but the subsequent projects felt focus grouped and sanitized, a bid for mainstream approval that stripped away any compelling edge. Kelly agreed, adding that Meghan's attempts to position herself as a relatable every woman are fundamentally at odds with her reality. You cannot be both a victim of the world's most powerful institution and a power player demanding $100 million deals. The audience senses the disingenuousness even if they can't articulate it. Martha Stewart built her brand on a perceived hard-won expertise. Gwyneth Paltrow, love her or hate her, leans into her privilege without apology. Megyn is caught in the middle, trying to have it both ways, and it's a narrative disaster. A significant portion of the discussion focused on the concept of elite authenticity and why some figures, like Stewart and Paltrow, are granted cultural permission to operate in rarefied spaces while others, like Megyn, are pilloried for it. Kelly posited that it boils down to delivery and self-awareness. Martha Stewart taught America how to properly fold a fitted sheet. She commands respect through demonstrable, if sometimes obsessive, knowledge. Gwyneth sells wellness as a luxury good with a wink. She knows her vampire repellent spray is absurd, and that's part of the charm. Megyn presents her lifestyle not as a luxury, but as a virtuous, almost accidental byproduct of her truth. The audience isn't buying it. Greenwald, ever the political theorist, connected this to a broader societal rejection of elite moralism. There is a growing intolerance for those who preach sacrifice and mindfulness from a position of obscene wealth and influence. It's the same reason politicians who fly on private jets to climate conferences face backlash. Meghan's brand is built on a form of moralizing that her life doesn't reflect, and in an age of social media scrutiny, that gap is impossible to hide. The most damning conclusion from the dialogue was that Meghan Markle's struggles are symptomatic of a larger cultural shift. The public, weary of being lectured by out-of-touch celebrities, is rewarding raw, unfiltered content and punishing calculated, morally superior branding. Kelly and Greenwald, despite their different political homes, found remarkable agreement on this point. Authenticity is the new currency, and Megyn is dangerously overdrawn. Martha Stewart's subtle dig wasn't just about business, Kelly concluded. It was a verdict. It was the old guard of American entrepreneurship looking at the new and saying, "You haven't earned your place." Greenwald put it more bluntly. In the marketplace of ideas and influence, Meghan Markle is being outmaneuvered by a woman who went to jail for insider trading and another who sells vagina-scented candles. Let that sink in. It tells you everything you need to know about the value of consistency and audacity over curated virtue. In the end, the segment was less about jam and jade eggs, and more about a fundamental law of modern fame. You can be wealthy, you can be famous, you can even be controversial, but you cannot be perceived as a fraud. And right now, in the court of public opinion, Meghan Markle is losing that case. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please do not forget to leave your thought in the comment section. Thanks for watching.